Snowman here with Studio on Lake on the watercolor side. Hey, this is a little mix matched, just a simple gnome, goofy looking fellow. This is a preview of something that's coming up, a little more of an advanced gnome, which will be up in a couple days. But how do we start? So, you got a piece of cardboard, got regular tape. I took this tape and ran it against my jeans so that it doesn't tear on the paper. And then just a standard sheet. It's the same one that's in the kit for Jordy. And then on one side I'm going to set this up, and I'm not going to finish the snowman in this one. You'll see that in a future one, but I wanted to show you how I'm setting up two cards here, or two, not necessarily cards. I guess they would be cards, but they don't fold over. How does that make sense? So I'm just going to put a blue wash in, and the paints are the standard kit that I built for Jordy and for myself. So I'm kind of randomly putting in some blues, and I believe this is a phthalo blue, and then I wanted it to kind of have a green tint, so I came back and put in some Viridian green, just in random spots. And I did, this is wet on wet. The one on the left that we're going to do is going to be dry, just painting straight as if you would with regular color. So it's wet, the paint is starting to blend in there. And now I'm going to show you something here. Here's a little salt, and I'm going to put this on, and you get to see this throughout this video, how the salt reacts to the watercolor. It kind of sucks up and gives it a snowy kind of background. So that's all we're going to do on that one, other than you'll see the initial start and a few of the hints of the snowman. But they were letting that dry on the left side, and I'm going to let you watch throughout the 10 minutes or so of this video and see what that salt does to those to that piece on the left there. So grab some red. We're just free painting. This one has not been pre-wet, so we're just painting dry. And when you paint dry with watercolor, you end up with a fairly defined edge. But you can go back with some washes in there, because this is going to go on as all watercolor does. Pretty bright and pretty dark, and then it's going to fade down to almost a lighter pastel as we go through here. So I'm just building a random gnome. Got no real plan here for this guy. I wanted to do one with his hands off to the side. Personally, I think this guy's kind of ugly, but what the heck? Doesn't hurt anybody, right? Say, look at what that stuff is doing on the left-hand side. See how the salt is starting to clear out some of the paint. And I didn't put it in the center because the center was where I wanted to put the snowman. So I'm painting in a standard gnome. This guy does not have his nose up under the hat. The nose is going to be up here, and then there's going to be some cheeks. And this is just a little burnt sienna, thinned down. And I got to apologize for my filming setup. These last couple, two or three that next two or three that you're going to see, were filmed without the good lighting that I did pick up to put on the drafting board. And future ones after this next two or three will be really clear. They've turned out so you can actually see exactly everything I'm doing, and that took two or three different lighting aspects to go on there. And you can see the ones that I've got now. I've got a shadow of my hand in there. That will all go away here in the future. So I painted his nose in there. And I'm just kind of letting this watercolor do its thing. And then I put some cheeks in, and I did an outline of the where the eyes are going to go on. They're just going to be little beady gnome eyes. I figured this guy needed big ears. And that's a shout out to Rob over at Just Carve Rob. He likes to have big ears on stuff, so these ears are for you, Rob. Nothing particularly artistic about this deal here. Just having fun, and you can see how that red is starting to dull down a little bit. So now I've switched to a really watered down blue mixture. And I'm going to roughly sketch in his beard. Initially I thought maybe a couple mustaches, and then later on they get lost in the drawing. So he has hair up at the top. I'm trying my best not to touch the red or the burnt sienna up around his nose. You can see I'm leaving that alone because this will bleed into it. If you look at his left ear there, you can see where the blue is kind of bled a little bit into the ear. And that's the fun of watercolor. Once again, trying to stay away, you can see where I touched the blue on the bottom of the beard while I'm putting these feet in. The fun of doing these little things like this is one, you learn how to work with your paint. You see what your paint does. There we go. That's watercolor for you right there. You can see that heavy mixture of burnt sienna went up into the red, but it creates kind of a neat little shadow if you just let it go. I wanted his feet to be turned in, kind of a toe in kind of deal. And you can see how that's drying, and then if you look over to the left there, look at what that salt is doing to that one that we're going to add a snowman onto later on. Nothing artistic here. Hide the better part of his body behind his beard. Once again, I'm still trying to stay away from the blue in the beard. Now we're going to put in the two beady eyes. I like it when I'm carving also over at the wood carving channel, Studio on the Lake. And this is the new watercolor channel, and folks have helped out. They've already whopped up in a week 35 subscribers, so thanks for those of you who did that. If you're new to the channel, you can help the channel out by subscribing, get us over 1,000. And it's interesting to see how long that takes for that to happen. I went back in with the burnt sienna mixture and thought maybe he needed a mouth in the middle there. So he's goofy looking. And here's where you find out that you have no artistic talent. You're starting to put fingers in. You're like, 3? No, 3 doesn't work. Let's put fourth one in there. Poof, there you go. Thumb, 4 fingers. Got to make them longer to make them work. So as you can see, you don't have to have a whole lot of artistic talent. This is kind of like doodling, except you're doodling with paint. And occasionally you'll come across, I put a little bit of a light yellow in there to catch the ears, and I'll come back later, put a little highlight of yellow on the tip of his nose and his cheeks. You can mix and shade this stuff ad nauseum if you wanted. You can look at your palm, it's going to have a little white in the palm. And back to the blue, kind of the blue-green mixture. Just putting a quick wash up there to signify where a pom-pom would be coming off the hat. Now, I figured this guy needed something else. And it just kind of dawned on me that to put in love you this much. So how much? This much. And I will come back later on, you'll see, and highlight these letters or block them out in any way you look at it. So there we go, straightforward. Now I always like to put some stuff around and do a little bit of splatter, so I just do rough, basic snowflakes, and I use various different colors to do that. I'll put eventually in here some blues, some reds. There you go. So blues, reds, yellows, a green, and just kind of random throw those in there. That kind of breaks it up and gives it more of a winter look about it. Like I said, this is beginner, basic stuff. Now I switched to gouache, white gouache. Now, if you're a watercolor purist, you probably won't be watching this because this is blasphemous. You're supposed to, in watercolor, leave the whites alone. In other words, use the whites of the paper. I find it more fun in a lot of cases in the simple drawings, and then especially if you're a beginner, to use a white gouache. Now, gouache is not necessarily a watercolor, although it is water-based. But I use it straight out of the tube and try to get those whites back in. You can see I'm highlighting his beard, and you can see why I use this. Now I'll come back over the beard a little bit later. You could argue that this was mixed media, much like had you take a pen and drawn the outline of this character in there, and then did the watercolor washes in the middle. You'd have a pen and ink kind of thing going on. Watercolor, pen and ink. This gouache is not necessarily true, and you'll see later that it dries a lot lighter. And if you hang around this series, when we get a little further down the road and start getting into more intermediate advanced paintings, I'm going to show you some techniques that I use with this gouache and watercolor to really define a painting. So I've got a little bit of blue that I've got there and some white, and I'm just doing a little bit of splatter. Here's a preview of the snowman, and I don't know that I get him finished in this one, but the snowman with a gnome throwing snowballs at him. You can see him in the upper left-hand corner there, and he looks kind of annoyed and irritated that gnome is whopping snowballs over there. So here we go. We're coming back with a little bit of the blue light and redefining some hairs in there. So now this beard has basically 3 layers on it. He had a blue layer initially, kind of a blue-gray. Put some white gouache over it, and then came back and highlighted with this, and it'll dry a little bit lighter. And you can work the heck out of this stuff, or you can just go straight forward. So now I've come back. You see how the white gouache has dulled down quite a bit? I wanted to brighten that up just a little bit around his Santa cuffs. Snowballs on his feet, and then up there in the top. Then I was looking at the letters and thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to just put a white liner in there. And I almost lost the this much, but you can still get the this much when, even though I went over it with the gouache. And that's a liner brush, my favorite one. It's older than dirt. One of the neat things about watercolor painting is brushes don't tend to destroy, and you can keep them for years and years, versus oil painting, where if you don't clean the brushes one time, you kind of messed them up. So I kind of like where he went. He's pretty simple. Like I said, I wasn't fond of this gnome, but I do shine all the work just in case. And there you go. You see that? So that's the end of this one. Click like, comment, and subscribe. Get the channel over 1,000. Hey, thanks a lot. This has been Bandwidth Studio on the Lake.